Hey guys, it's that time again for the 101st episode of Doc Lowe Talks Comics. So how excited are we guys? I'm excited. Hopefully you guys are too. Thanks for joining me. Alright, let's go ahead and dig in. First book I got this week, the book of the week, is The Sacrificers, number 18 by Rick Remender with Andre Lima Arujo as the artist. He's come on for a few issues here and there. Max Fuimara is the main artist on the title, but occasionally we get this other artist and we still get this absolutely gorgeous artwork. We get to see what has happened 30 years after Pigeon and Saluna deposed her father. And it looks pretty grim, to be honest. It looks like you've got a father and a mother and a son, and the son has taken ill, and they take him to Beatrice, Pigeon's sister. And she's a healer, and she tries to help the boy and make him healthy again, bring him back to life. And unfortunately, it's too late. He passes. And this makes Beatrice look at things differently. She says, you deposed this God in the name of creating something beautiful, creating something special, giving back to this world. And instead, all you've given them is torment and pain. And she said it was your choice to kill the gods. No one asked for this, and you clearly weren't ready to replace them. And this is a strong change in Beatrice from issue 16, where it looked like Pigeon was going to die. And she stood there next to him and knelt next to him. And he said, I've done everything in this life by myself. Don't make me die alone as well. And instead, it seems like Pigeon has lived only to cause suffering and agony to those whom he tried to free in the name of saving them and salvation from the sacrifices and the sacrificers. But now, in a cruel twist of fate, it looks like things have come back to where he is the enemy. And it's like the old phrase goes, you either die early or you live long enough to become the villain when you were originally the hero of the story. So, excellent stuff. If you're not reading this, let me know in the comments why. Because a long time ago, I was only reading superhero stuff. Back in the 90s, that's really all I touched. But now we have these wonderful stories just like this one, this and The Seasons, Autumn Kingdom by Cullen Bunn. Things that bring out literature, bring out true stories and character growth that unfortunately our heroes in steel or spandex can never see. It's an excellent book, guys. Highly, highly recommend it. All right, next up is Everything Dead and Dying by Tate Bromble by Jacob Phillips. And you get to see the continuation of our man Jack here, who sees torment and pain in his dreams. And in the end, he's just looking for his daughter. He says, what happened to my daughter? And he's been kidnapped by the same group that we saw a couple of issues ago, where you have Colette and I can't remember what his name was, Samuel. And he says, I was once like you, Jack, and then I manned up and came to realize that my family was gone. So that's where it is that Jack is so enamored with the little tiny town that he lives in, that once the zombie apocalypse hits, he feeds all of his neighbors, and they continue going on almost like automatons, day in, day out, doing the same things that they used to do. His little girl always comes to breakfast, His husband is right there for them cooking breakfast. And now, I mean, it's not perfect. The breakfast that he cooks is not edible because he doesn't have enough wherewithal up here anymore to know how to make that food. But they're going through the motions. And Jack is trying to keep everything the same. And eventually, you get to see that they're going to kill everybody and take over. They're like, it's the same argument that came through The Walking Dead at one point, where it's not, you know, if your husband Bobby is right there, it's not your husband anymore. If your wife, it's not your wife. It's just a zombie, it's flesh, but there's no soul left within these characters. And Jack sees that soul, and eventually Colette turns on Samuel, just like you kind of thought that she would. Because Samuel wanted to go through due process. Even though Jack killed a bunch of his men, he wanted to set up due process and not just murder Jack in cold blood, because Jack was doing an honorable thing, protecting his own, protecting his land, protecting his family from outsiders, from interlopers. And so he says, you know, we'll do this the right way. And unfortunately, Colette says, no, we're going to take out all of these creatures. They're not real. And Jack screams they don't deserve this. And eventually he breaks free, and there's a young lady that he had let into his house at one point with a baby. And he says, no, don't you touch her. Don't you hurt her. And eventually, even though it goes click, there's 2 more rounds in the chamber, and she kills the baby inside the walker, and she kills the mother. And you get to see a little bit of backstory with Jack when he was in church after his father had passed. And he's talking to the priest, and he says, you know, what if I kind of hated my dad? What if I'm happy that he's gone out of my life? And the priest says, it's customary for me to say that we should honor our fathers and mothers, but the scriptures also state the importance of our spiritual families, the ones we gather along the way, like the church or the neighbors in this town. If you cannot find solace in your father's life, find it in theirs. Honor the family that you have. So it's nice to see a moment of peace before 2 of the characters, Ross, and I can't remember the young lady's name, but let's see, what was it? Yeah, it was in here somewhere. Where is it? Let's see. It was here, around here somewhere, because it showed the 2 people finding the Georgia. That's what her name was. Well, Georgia and Ross come to an untimely end because something apparently bit Ross when she wasn't looking. And so we get a very interesting ending to this book. But again, you have real characters. You have people that you care about, whether they live, whether they die, what their motivations are. So, excellent work. Tate Bromball, Jacob Phillips, and company on this wonderful image book, Everything Dead and Dying. All right, next up is the always popular Conan the Barbarian, issue number 27. And this is by Jim Zub with Fernando Dagnino as the artist. And we get a continuation of the storyline of the Conquering Crown, part 2. And Conan is welcomed into Aquilonia with this amazing artwork that just pops. Fernando Dagnino is very similar to Roberto de la Torre in that he can really bring a sense of John Buscema and the grandeur that Buscema brought to Conan. That was one of Buscema's favorite characters to draw. And the king of Aquilonia here, you know, wines and dines Conan. He says, I want to make you a general in my army, and I'm going to hand pick this army. He offers his daughter's hand in marriage. But eventually he says, I've received visions of a dark future set beyond the stars. The woeful eye now awake will see the worthy and purge the weak. And Conan says, the woeful eye. And about that time, he gets kind of a shot right here of something that he knows is weird and wrong. He says, I must go for now. And so the next day, he says, Conan and my men will lead the charge and punish the Zingarians. And the thing about it is, he is the Mad King. And the Zingarians themselves have done nothing wrong. So in the next page, then Conan says, Zingaria is indeed vulnerable at the moment, but punishing their people for the reckless actions of a cowardly king is a poor way to gain allies or expand territory. So he brings that up. The king yells at him and says, how dare you, I dubbed thee a traitor. And so he puts him down in the deepest dungeons of the castle of Aquilonia. Conan has 3 men that are sent to kill him. He fights his way through those 3 men and eventually fights his way out of the castle. And we don't really see where Conan got off to other than he jumped into the river, but we see that his rebellion and the fact that he lived brings out rebellion in the Aquilonians, and they start to overthrow their captors. Not captors per se, but their rulers. So, excellent book, always on top of the pile. Love reading this. And again, it's literature. It's one of the greatest characters that Robert E. Howard ever created, ever came up with. And I'm so excited that they've gotten Jim Zub at Heroic and Titan to continue these wonderful stories. He is a marvelous steward of that character. All right, The Power Fantasy, issue 14. And this is by Kieran Gillen and Casper Wingard. I keep coming back to this book. It's this book and World Tree, which we'll talk about later. The Power Fantasy, issue 14, we get a lot of talking heads. And it's all about superpowers and Etienne and all of the supers that are in this world. And how would this world go forward if Etienne had just made a few different changes, if he had let some things go that he did not, and instead pushed other agendas that, again, he did not. So it's heady. I don't really know how to describe it other than that, but it's really heady stuff. It's really amazing things, and I think it's only got 3 more issues to go, so you know what? I'm going to stick it out. I'm going to hang in there. I dropped Ultimate X-Men, and I kind of regret doing that with issue 14, but I'm not going to let go of the Power Fantasy. I think it's only got 3 issues left to go. So, excellent job, you guys. I wish I had more to say about this, but it just kind of goes a little bit over my head with most of these issues. All right. Here we have part 4 or 5 of the Dreadnought War by Joshua Williamson and Tom Riley. And we get to see Duke and Cobra Commander fighting side by side against the Dreadnoughts. And the Dreadnoughts, they say, you know, look, we don't want to be Cobra. We don't want to take over the world. We just want to party and have a good time. And then one of the guys yells, and we love grape soda. And yeah, grape soda. So you have those moments of levity, even though it looks like people are going to die, and you've got Ripper here literally ripping into Duke with his chainsaw arm, a la Ash from Evil Dead. And at that moment, they're going to try to burn Cobra Commander, but Duke has to fight Ripper in order to try to free Cobra Commander. Well, eventually Commander gets free. And you have Road Pig here, get off my lawn. And so he's got this big Gatling gun that he's carrying, and he's trying to drop the Joes. And finally he says, not so fast, Blondie. And he says, your friends are trying to hurt my new friends, and he slams Duke down to the ground. But all of a sudden, the Dreadnoughts show that they have an energon cannon, and they shoot it up into the sky, and Road Pig gets taken out because he picks up his massive hammer, and just like Thor, except he's not Thor. He just gets a lightning bolt. He gets Benjamin Franklin there. So, awesome action. This is just all out action and fun, and you get to see that Cobra Commander does not take things lying down. At the end of the issue, you get to see him rise up and show that he's got the brass cojones to fight with anyone that stands in his way. All right, then we have the author Immortal, issue number 3. This is a trippy book by Frank Barbary and Morgan Beam, and we get to continue the story of Hector and his daughter Alethea, and they're trapped in this web, and it's supposed to be an oracle, but instead something has twisted the oracle, and so she's dark and evil instead of being something light. And then we get to go back and see the hunter that was left behind in the last issue, and it's a lot going on in this book, but at the same time you understand what's going on. Hector and his daughter are trapped in this web. Well, eventually the oracle lets him know, you have the strength, you have the ability, you have the right to either loosen this web from yourself, or you can create a brand new web. You can just wipe it away. You can just take this and just wipe it away and just start over all over again. And that is what writers do. They create worlds out of just a pen and paper. And they can choose to either build that world into something like Conan, G.I. Joe, another IP like that, or they can destroy that world with the swipe of a hand. And in the meantime, you get to see, let's see, you get to see Hector's girlfriend meeting up with the writer who has actually written all these books, the one that's been canceled, as we talked about, the analog for J.K. Rowling here. And you get to see that she says, small talk, and she's like, is that why you're with an older man who's a writer? And she says, Hector, I mean, yeah, maybe, but are we talking about my love life or your business? And so she's telling her about England, and the girl says, I would love to travel to England and see the castles. And she says, oh, the castles are just drafty ruins with good PR. That's all they are. So the deeper you get into this issue, then the deeper you get into this nightmare that this oracle has pulled Hector and Alethea into. She says this place was once gleaming lush and full of life, but the hunger grew unseen and insatiable. Like me, it forgot its purpose. It craves more than it can hold. The story devours, always. And he says, this is all twisted, this place is broken, and I can feel it. You're supposed to be the oracle, you have to help me. And she says, but you're not him, you're not the dark wizard. And he says, I told that woman I'm not a wizard. Why do you think I'll have this sort of power? And then she tells him, I see now more clearly, these threads do not bind you. You could weave them anew or unravel them completely. So he is learning that he can choose his own path. He can become his own man, whatever that means to him. He can go and find a way to have a great life with his daughter. He can go and create these stories and build his own legacy without having to build his legacy on the back of another writer. So, character building, amazing art by Morgan Beam. It's very cartoony, but it fits the storyline oh so well. All right, next to last up is The Walking Dead Deluxe, issue 127. We get a double-sized issue here, and you jump ahead a couple of years, and then all of a sudden you get to see the character of Jesus jump off of this horse, and slowly but surely these new characters who are named Magna, where's it at? Kelly, Luke, Connie, and Yumiko. So you've got these new characters here that are trying to get into Alexandria. And Rick says, you know, so they took their weapons. And Rick tells Magna, you can never be too careful. We have our children here. I'm sure you understand. And that is non-negotiable. If you don't like that, unfortunately, you're welcome to leave if you have such strong objection. And so she acts like she's going to turn and walk away, and then she says, no, of course, we're going to stay here. We couldn't pass this up. This place is amazing. So you get to see Rick a couple of years after that last battle with Negan, where his leg was shattered along with his hand. And he doesn't quite walk with a cane now, but he does, well, he uses a crutch. But in this issue, you get to see a big statement from Carl. He wants to go be his own man. He wants to move to the hilltop and learn from blacksmith. He wants to make his own way. And from starting out, from Carl being just a little kid who misses his dad, and then they get reunited in issue 6, and now he wants to go off and be on his own. So this is truly a generational story, and it only gets better when it's in color. So we are getting pretty close to the end. Like I said, issue 193, so only maybe 60 some odd issues left to go, but one of the best stories ever told in comics, hands down. And World Tree by James Tynion IV and Fernando Blanco. And I'm kind of at the same point that I was at with Department of Truth a couple of issues ago. It's just a bunch of talking. It's a bunch of people sitting around talking about what they're going to do or what they're not going to do. The artwork is fine. The story, it just drags. You have a lawyer who is just absolutely merciless, and then we have Agent Silk here, who works for the FBI, and she's trying to figure out. It's just a big global conspiracy about the undernet and the internet, and how they have to keep the internet down so that the undernet doesn't get a hold of people and just have them murdering people left and right. Meanwhile, you have some other characters that are trying to put the internet back together. They're trying to bring everything back online. He says, everyone at Angel is hard at work to put us all back in touch with each other. I predict that we can get the internet back on its feet within 2 weeks. So I get the overarching story of this, but it's just taking so long to get there. And I think it's simply because James Tynion IV is writing so many books at the same time that he can't write the plots for all of these and keep them all, I don't want to say keep them all straight at the same time, because he can, but he can't keep them all as energized and moving forward. Some of them have to move at a snail's pace in order to get there. Something is killing the children, and some of those books, they have to move a little bit slower or a lot slower to get where he's going in order to let him maintain a level of sanity. Because if you're writing 6 or 7 books a month, or what would equate to 6 or 7 books a month between miniseries and ongoings and things like that, then there's no way that anybody could keep up that schedule indefinitely. You'd have to have everything be a 6 or 7 issue mini and just hang on until it was all finished. It's a good book, but I think I'm going to give it one more issue, and if I can't really get any traction behind it, World Tree has got to go. All right, and for the next video, we are going to talk about this book that I picked up, and it is Batman Second Night, and it's the 2nd issue. We have Dan Jurgens and Mike Perkins and Mike Spicer going back to that world that they created with an early Batman. And that's all I'm really going to show you from this book. But It says the year is 1940. Most of the Western world is embroiled in a war against a fascist regime whose march across Europe shows no sign of defeat. So then you get a young reporter from the Daily Star named Lois Lane comes into town. So this is set at the beginning of these heroes and these stories. So I can't wait to talk to you guys about that and show you this awesome Mike Perkins and Mike Spicer artwork. And that, boys and girls, wraps up episode 101 of Doc Loyal Talks Comics. Thank you again for joining me. I do have some big news before I go. We have hit 250 subscribers. Thank you for doing that. Only you can do that. The algorithm helps out, but it's word of mouth. So if you guys enjoy these hopefully in-depth reviews of these comics that come out each and every week, along with the unboxing videos, the videos that also talk about Comics Couch, where we kind of delve into individual issues a little bit deeper than in a comic review, or we talk about a broader issue about the industry itself, then definitely tell all your friends that they need to join. And we've got episode 104 coming up very, very soon. And I might have an idea of what I'm going to do for a giveaway. I will let you guys know in an upcoming video. But thank you again so much for 250 subscribers. Now let's keep going towards that 500, 1,000, 1,800, and so on and so forth. Thank you guys. Have a great day. Take care, and we'll see you in the next video.